To me. Tell me you care for me. You're the first thing and the last thing on my mind. In your arms I feel sunshine on a promise.
All right, welcome everybody. This is your new day. We're going to get started very soon. But I'll let everybody settle in and
Oh, but
more
the
people join in.
night is young.
We'll get things underway at 2 minutes past the
Flowers
hour,
blossom
1 minute from now. Thanks everyone for
in
being
the
here.
winter time. In your arms I feel sunshine. Give up yourself unto the moment. The time is now. Give up yourself unto the moment. Let's make this moment last. You may find yourself
Welcome to those that just joined. We're going to get things underway very soon. Just allowing everyone to settle in. We'll get this
that you
started very
accept
soon.
it as part of your destiny. I'd give all I have, but it's not enough. And my
All right, my friends, how's everyone doing? Thank you so much for being with me today. My name is Alex. I'm going to be the host of today's webinar, our event management for nonprofit webinar here at Monday.com. Probably many of you have already joined me before in other sessions. I run many of these different sessions over the last years, but if this is anybody's first session with me, it is great to meet you and finally have you part of our nonprofit family and all the different initiatives that we're offering. We're together for 1 hour today, and there's a lot we can cover. We're also already over 50 people, which is great. And I really want to encourage you to ask as many questions as you want to during today's session. Please just put the questions in the chat and I'll do my best to get through all of our questions today. Apologies in advance if there's some questions that we just don't have time for. I'll do my best to prioritize, the most interesting ones. And if there's anything that I can't answer live in today's session, I'll take that offline and we can send a follow-up email to wrap up anything that we can't cover in today's session. So please keep the questions coming. I'll do a very, very quick intro. And while I'm doing that, if anyone wants to do the same and let us know in the chat where you're from, it would be great to hear a little bit about everyone's nonprofits, but we have to be a little bit mindful of time today. So I'll do mine very quick. And if anybody wants to say where they've joined from, that would be cool in the chat as well. I'm Alex. Good to meet you. I am at Monday.com for about 3.5 years now, but come from the world of nonprofits. So I've seen the good, bad, and the ugly. I know just how much amazing impact nonprofits can have. And I'm sure that, in our crew today, we've got a lot of superheroes who are truly, changing the world. But I've also seen the struggles nonprofits face firsthand. I've been down there and worn many hats and, I've seen people working long hours for not enough money. And if Monday.com can do anything, it's helping people be more efficient and organized around their work. So I'm pretty proud of the work that we're doing. And even if we're only a small part of the successes that many of your nonprofits are having, it's still really cool to hopefully be contributing to the impact that people are having all around the world. So I'm very passionate about my job. Most of what I do is this kind of thing, these kind of scalable trainings for nonprofits. We currently have 24,000 active nonprofits using the platform all the time, every single month, which is really cool. And as many as possible, I'm hoping I'm able to reach and help be successful using the platform. Excuse me. And occasionally I do lead more kind of in-depth implementations. You can see some of the big brand names, if you like, on the screen. And a fun fact about me, I was once upon a time a tour guide, led tours in half a dozen different countries around the world. And I have a little bit of a cough, which hopefully won't be a distraction. Hopefully won't be a distraction in today's session. Excuse me. Big welcome to those in the chat who've introduced themselves. We've got folks from Excuse me, gee. Folks from California, Louisiana, Washington State. I actually went to University of Washington, so go Dogs. London/New York, Oklahoma City, Central Illinois, Long Island in New York. Another one from California, LA. Cool. Holdridge in Nebraska, Bend, Oregon, Anchorage, Alaska. Very cool. Carly from the Diaper Bank, how you doing? Hi, Erin, kia ora from New Zealand. Hope you can recognize the accent. Washington, D.C. Oh, this is great. Really nice spread around the US and indeed the rest of the world. You can see one question already is, will the session be recorded and a recap sent with notes? Yes, it is. The session is being recorded, as all of my sessions are. And yes, you'll get a copy of this sent to you once we're done here. And it's pretty cool now. Zoom does kind of summarize it all, gives you nice notes and a transcript and everything. So you'll be able to rewatch this or share it with colleagues, whatever you need to do. All right. Well, a few more have already said hi. From Peru, from the Netherlands, Pennsylvania in the US, Arizona, London, Argentina, Barbados, and again, Pennsylvania in the US. Really nice. Thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. It's very cool to hear. So we're here today to talk mostly about event management. But before we do that, I do want to just give a very quick pitch so that everyone knows what we offer for nonprofits. Probably most of you are already on our nonprofit program, I would assume. But if there's anyone here who is brand new or maybe doesn't even know about the nonprofit program yet, I want to just spend 1 or 2 minutes on that to get things started. Monday.com/nonprofits is where you'll find everything you need to know about what we offer for nonprofits and how to take advantage of it. You can see the eligibility for our nonprofit program at the eligibility tab, obviously. This is also where you can apply to join the program. If you are eligible to join the nonprofit program, you receive 10 seats for free on our pro tier, which is our second highest level. You get a big discount off extra seats. You also get a big discount off upgrading to our very highest tier, which is enterprise. And I hope that everybody here in today's call is either already part of the nonprofit program or able and eligible to apply. Our eligibility criteria have actually just been broadened a bit, so even more organizations are now able to join us, which is great. And the application process is very simple. It takes just a couple of minutes. If you're already on the nonprofit program, that's amazing. You can let me know in the chat how the application process worked, and hopefully it was smooth and simple. And maybe what you didn't yet know is that there are other resources available to you. I'm not providing these webinars every single day, but something pretty close to it. If you come here to the Resource Center, you will see other things that we're offering. The Nonprofit Academy, for example, I'm hosting sessions pretty much every single week on topics like managing donors, grants, projects, volunteers, all sorts of things. And then here in this section, you'll be able to see the full calendar of everything that we're offering, all for free, including the Academy and also these kind of more ad hoc webinars on different topics. We've got some really cool stuff coming up. And also, feel free to make some requests. If there's any topics that you wish we could cover, if there's enough people interested in it, why not? We can definitely consider it. So there's a lot of cool resources available, all for free for nonprofits. Sometimes people think, that nonprofits get a worse deal somehow. It's actually the opposite. You get all the stuff that the paying accounts get and actually more, which is pretty cool. So check out this page if you're not yet aware. Monday.com/nonprofits is the base, and then all these other tabs live along the top. All right. So let's jump into it. Our main topic for today, as we already said, is around event management. Now, we're coming up towards some pretty big fundraising dates for many nonprofits around the world. We have Giving Tuesday, Christmas, end of year drives, all these kind of things. So there's obviously many different types of events out there, and we could maybe start to sort of brainstorm some ideas together. So what I thought I would do is come here to the plus to add a new item to my workspace and start things off by adding a doc. Now, this is another feature which some of you may not be aware of, and this is a perfect place to do some brainstorming. Now, you can make this private if you need to, but in this case, we're going to imagine that our team is brainstorming ideas for a fundraising event. So I'm going to create the doc and jot down some ideas. Now, if you're familiar with, Google Docs, it's a fairly similar concept, but I think the Monday Docs take things to another level. There is so much connection between your document and your Monday board that it really unlocks a lot of very cool potential. So at the most basic level, we can just start writing, but you can already see there's a lot of other options. For example, we could start with AI. So I could even describe what I want to create here in the AI template. So, and this is a brainstorming doc with ideas for a non-profit fundraising event. Now, this is probably not the most inclusive way to brainstorm with your team, but AI is pretty amazing and it can give you some really nice ideas, even just a bit of a framework, perhaps. All right, some great ideas already come up. I mean, I had no idea what this was going to produce. That is part of the magic of AI, but it's suggesting a charity gala, a formal dinner with auctions and entertainment, a fun run, crowdfunding campaign, benefit concert, side auction, workshops. Excellent ideas, okay? It's given us budget consideration, marketing strategies. All right, a really nice start. So then we can, again, imagine that we're working here as a team. Let's take this first one, the charity gala. We can start putting in some bullet points. Which venue should we use? Could we get a celeb guest speaker? Is there enough parking on site? Right, this is all the ideas that we're just jotting down here very freely. We're not in a formal organized Monday way yet, but any one of our team can come and see here and collaborate what we're doing. I can even communicate with my team right here in the doc. Don't need to invite them via email. I can simply type the @ key. It'll bring up everyone in my account. For example, Sarah. Do you still have contact with George Clooney? Do you think he'd be available to help our small charity? Who knows? Maybe George Clooney is doing benefit gigs for small startup nonprofits. We'll have to wait and see. But you can start to get a sense of what's possible, using these docs. And I think whenever you're planning a big event, this is a good place to start, right? There's no rules. Everyone can jot down their ideas. It helps everyone in your team kind of feel part of this event. And then together you can kind of start to prioritize, narrow things down, and eventually turn this into a more kind of organized Monday board. Once things do get a little bit more, organized, let's say, you can actually turn some of these things into items on a board. You see over here, we have the option to select the bullet points that we're interested in. And with 1 or 2 clicks, I can come in here and I can add them to a board. So let's now come to the plus and create our second element, which is going to be our board. Okay, this is going to be the place we actually are going to be managing this event. The nuts and bolts, the nitty-gritty details of our event will be managed in a board, which I'm going to call Fundraising Event Management. Okay, it's again set to main so that everyone in my account can see and collaborate with me. Maybe eventually, by the way, you'd like to make it shareable. This is great when you have people working from outside of your account, and in events that could well be the case. Maybe you need to invite the caterers to the event, or some kind of external supplier. I'm not sure what else you might be working with. Maybe George Clooney gets a guest account with your organization, and then he can collaborate with you on this specific board without needing to be given one of your precious 10 free seats. Remember, on the nonprofit program, you get 10 free seats, a 70% discount on extras. So you could, fork out the big bucks and buy George Clooney a seat of his own with a nice discount. But if it's just to have him work on one specific board, or 2 or 3 even, as long as you're inviting people on a board-by-board basis, they can come in as shareable guests, and then they do not take up any of your paid seats. Guests, as a reminder, are free and unlimited. and they can do everything that someone else can do on the specific board that you've invited them to. The board just needs to be shareable. For now, I'm going to keep it as a main board, but I wanted to point that out. And then what we're managing on this board, let's just say items for now. Could be all sorts of different things. Probably they're going to be, individual tasks, but let's keep it generic for now. And I'm going to create a brand new board. And you may have seen a lot of Monday webinars in the past, and even most of my webinars, I tend to use a lot of templates. I think templates are great, generally speaking, but I also sometimes get the feeling that when everything's working so perfectly in a demonstration, it's harder to sort of relate to actually building this yourself from scratch. So I thought I'd try something new today and actually do absolutely everything we're seeing completely from scratch, just to show you what's possible, and even the space of just 1 hour that we're here together today. So although I am building this out from scratch with the help of AI a little bit here and there, I also wanted to point out that there are already built event management templates. You can come here to the plus, and instead of creating a new board, you could come and check out the template center. We do have some great templates for managing events there. No problem to use those, but I think it's fun to build this out ourselves from nothing. So let's again return to where we were. These are just 3 points that we want to add to that board to help us get started. So I'm going to come to this button. I'm going to choose the board that they're suggesting. It's actually the very first board because it orders it by the most recent things that we accessed. Very convenient. And then I can put it into either of these two groups. At the moment, they're both just called group title. So now the design on my doc changes. It turns into a link. And with a single click, I can be taken to the board where I'm actually going to be managing these things. You can see how they've been formatted here. Now, maybe I want to change this a little bit, make it a bit more manageable. Secure guest speaker. And decide on venue, arrange target. Maybe my example of the items I wanted to move over here was not the best because I then had to make changes. If you'd made your brainstorm planning more along the lines of how you want things to look on your board, then it would be even easier to move things over. All right, so we need to plan this event. It's going to be a complex event, and there's almost an infinite number of ways that we could do that. But I think having the items as our tasks is a pretty standard way of working. And then we can maybe start to group these items using groups. So this would be maybe the first group, something like preparation. Okay, so these are the tasks that need to be done beforehand, preparation and planning. Then we have the day of the event. So these are the things we're actually doing when we're going live. And then we have something like follow-up and closing. And I'm going to maybe change the colors here just because those two are pretty similar. Actually, that's still pretty similar, isn't it? You can change the color of groups very easily just with a click of a button. You can customize everything you like. So this is starting to give us a little bit more shape now, okay? 3 basic groups, before, during, and after. You could, of course, add more groups down here if you wanted to, break that further down, break down the planning stage into various different elements. There's all sorts of other ways you could do that. This is not the only way, but I think this is just enough to give us a nice bit of framework, shall we say. And probably, let's say, securing the guest speaker, deciding on the venue. These are all pretty much preparation and planning events, aren't they? So let's start adding a few more of these. We can say brainstorm event type. Okay, we've already started working on this. And here we have a person column. So I'm going to use to provide ownership. Okay, with a complex event like this, I think it is important that we have very clear ownership so that everyone knows exactly where the buck lies. I mean, brainstorming the event is going to be a team event, but I'm the owner of this event. We're all going to take part, but I'm going to be the one who organizes things, who summarizes, who decides on the nitty-gritty details. That took place today, and it is now, happy to say, marked as done. Now here in the update section, I can maybe leave a link to that doc that we worked on, or even let's add here a file column. And I'm going to provide a link to my Monday doc, like so. So now it's connected one and the other. This doc is connected to brainstorm. If anyone needs to refer back to the brainstorming and see how we got there, here it is. The doc is linked right here in the item. Really nice. All right, so the next thing we need to do is secure this guest speaker. Now, if the task becomes more complex, we can also lean into the option of having sub items. And in this case, there may be smaller tasks needed to complete in order to secure the guest speaker. So we could say, call George Clooney, check to see if Leonardo DiCaprio is available, or we could have a slightly different structure between our main items and our sub items. In this case, let's just list the potential guest speakers here. That we're going to be reaching out to. And again, we have an owner here. Sarah has a contact with George. Maybe we're just reaching out cold. I'm not sure how far we're going to get with Iran picking up the phone and trying to reach Leo. Or who else do we have in the team? Someone else can pick this one up, Christina. And Sarah can then come in here and mark when she started working on this. Now, it's got a column here that it's suggesting that we use, a date column. But the nice thing about using sub items is that they don't have to be the same as the items above. Now, the columns above. The columns that you see here will relate to every single item on your board. The only exception to that is within the sub item. So we could remove the date column if we need to, right? It's not perhaps necessary for these tasks. Maybe we have other things that we do want to mention. And for example, maybe we want to record their phone numbers here. So this is how we're going to be contacting them. Don't tell George that I gave away his secret number on the call today. Or any other feature that you want to add, you can add those in here in the sub items. And as you can plainly see, it's different now from the item level above. Even though if we added a sub item down here, it will have the same columns as the other sub items. So sub items will always be consistent within a board. Items will always be consistent within a board. Okay, fabulous. And maybe we put the ownership here overall with Sarah as well, even though she's delegated contacting some of these others to different people. We can also mark this one maybe as working on it. Okay, great. So then we need to decide on the venue. And again, maybe we put in here in the sub items, the venues that we're going to be working on securing, or maybe we put in here the specific tasks. These are the sort of elements that do become a little bit up to you, right? Let's maybe move these two down here, just so we can start to see how things are looking. So then the day of event, we need to set up tables. We need to help caterers arrange food. Maybe, by the way, we don't help the caterers. Maybe the caterers arrange the food themselves, and we invite them to our board so that they can see this plan. They can actually mark this off themselves as done. Like we said before, the board would need to be made a shareable board, and then they could actually come in here and do that themselves. For something like the caterers or deciding on the venue, it's probably going to be helpful to have some kind of budget listed here. Okay, now when I click on the plus, I'm seeing a little sample of some of the column types that are possible. And the numbers column is the perfect one when it comes to using a budget. So let's have maybe two number columns, one for expected cost and another number column for actual cost. Okay, so the venue, let's say that deciding on the venue, we have a budget of the venue budget of $10,000. Okay, and then once we've decided on the venue's actual cost, we've signed the contract and we know exactly how much it's going to cost, we can put in here that it was actually only $9,500. Amazing. We put another another $500 up our sleeves to buy a thank you gift for George Clooney, maybe. Now, a few notes about those columns that I've just added, these number columns. I chose to add a number column rather than a plain text column, for example. Right, I could have come in here and added a text column, and this is what I've seen some people do and get into a bit of trouble. They can do things like this, add USD 10,000, comma, 000. Now, on the surface, that looks perfectly good, right? In fact, it even looks maybe better than this because it's given me the currency. But because it's been listed here as a number, because it's been listed here as text, this is our text column, we're not able to do anything with it as a number. Okay, this is now kind of dead information. I can't use this in a calculation or a dashboard. These ones, however, although they display as pretty basic numbers, they have the ability to give me more, right, that can be used in calculations. And if I want to display things like a currency in front of them, it's really easy. If I click down here on the bottom part where it's, in this case, summing them up, I can change the calculation. Right, maybe I want to see the average cost across the board. So if the parking was going to cost us another $6,000, you'll see the average. Probably the most useful there would be to see the sum. And I can, of course, add a symbol beforehand. Right, this is not changing the value that's inside the cell. It's still only 1 and 4 zeros, but the $ will be displayed before it. And if you're working in a different currency, we've had people using pesos and pounds and all sorts of different currencies in today's call. You can change that really easily or type your own, No problem. You can copy and paste symbols in here, whatever you want to do. Let's leave it like that for now. And we'll do the same here for the actual cost. And I'm going to remove this text column. I do not recommend using text columns for numbers. And this is also sort of screaming out for one more column. Probably you can figure it out on your own. Some kind of formula column to tell me the amount that's left, right? That would be pretty helpful. So I'm going to, again, come to the plus here, and I'm going to add a formula column. And this is another cool opportunity where I can highlight some of Monday's new AI features. Now, in this formula column, I'm not going to be constructing something particularly complicated. I want to see how much money I have left from two numbers. I could probably handle building this formula on my own, but AI is here. Why not let the robots do some of that work? Show me how much budget is remaining. Okay, let's see if it can handle that. I don't even list the names of the columns here, so it might be a bit too much. No, perfect. Can figure that out. Expected cost minus actual cost, right? These are the column names that it's pulling from my board. I can then insert that formula into my board. And there we go. $500 remaining, $6,000 remaining because we haven't got an actual cost here yet. And just like earlier, I can click down here and add the dollar. And I can then maybe change this to amount remaining. And although we use that formula AI builder to create one of the most simple formulas that Monday can handle, of course, the AI is capable of much more complex things. And I think that's really where the value comes in, right? That's when you can start to really see what the formula is capable of doing for you, which is pretty cool. All right, cool. We're starting to cook. Follow up on closing. Maybe we need to just add a couple of items here so we have some examples to work with. Send thank you note to all donors and pay final invoice. Just again to give some ideas here what we're working with. Again, we can break that down. We can assign ownership. We can set deadlines for these dates. We can add in the costs here and so on. So that's about as much detail as I'm going to go into here. Obviously, this isn't as detailed as a plan can get. And if you are building a serious fundraising gala, you're probably going to have hundreds of these different items. So don't feel like because I'm only showing you half a dozen items, that's how many items I think it requires. I just think that each event will be on its own, have many different moving parts and we'll have probably quite different individual tasks, but hopefully this gives you an idea of what kind of things you're probably going to be using. In fact, you know what, let's show one more feature here before we move on to something else, which is just to set up a reminder around these dates. If I come to the 3 dots here on my date column, and then I can visit settings, I can either, in fact, I can do both, set this as a deadline and add a reminder from right here within this column. Okay, I could also visit the automation center directly, but I find this even more intuitive. Setting it as a deadline will first require me to combine it with a status column, and if I want to, a person column. So I can now see the little icon showing me how long I've got to complete this task. If, for example, it's a couple of days away, it shows me the time remaining. And if I come to the same place and add the due date reminder, this is basically like a shortcut into the automation center. Okay, it's already built the automation for me. Here's my trigger, the first part, everything before the comma, and here's my action. And I don't need to do too much work to fill in the blanks here. So I can specify when I want this to arrive. It's a notification that's going to remind me. So I want maybe a bit of notice, a day or even 2 notice, 7:15 in the morning. And only if the status is not already set to done. I've already completed something, I don't want to be reminded about it. I want to notify the person in charge, right? So I can say things like, hi, owner, your task item name is due on date, and its current status is status. And all of those pieces of information will be pulled in dynamically from the board. And then who am I going to be notifying? Again, this could be one specific person. It could be the manager, the overall person in charge of the project. Or if you wanted to kind of give that ownership, you could make sure that each owner of the individual task is going to be sent that reminder to make sure that the event is going to go off without a hitch. And we want to make sure that by delegating those tasks, by breaking it down, we're not losing the insight into, what's going on, and making sure that just because one person maybe is delayed or can't complete their work on time, we're not actually running into any more holistic issues. So this is a good little reminder. If we add that automation, it should keep everybody on the straight and narrow. Great. So we've got through kind of 2 parts here of setting up the event. I think the next thing I would love to show you is how we can actually register people for the event. And again, your event may not be a gala like this one, a fundraising gala with fancy guest speakers, but registering people for an event, I think, is a very common need of nonprofits. Before I do that, I can see a bit of activity in the chat. So let's take a quick pause. I'm going to jump into the chat now, and we will see if we can get through the questions. Awesome to hear from Cassie that the application was very easy. And thanks for the thumbs up on the training options. Welcome from Belgium and Louisiana as well. And Mitch asked a good question. Is there a time limit for guests to see a shareable board? No. You can, of course, revoke somebody's guest status. In fact, we talked about it, but I didn't show you how it's done. So let's actually just take a look at that. If I change this board, even though it's created, I can still change it to a shareable board. I just clicked on the 3 dots here. Change the status here. And now when I click up here on invite, I have the option to invite someone from outside of my account. I can still invite people from within my account, but I can now invite with a simple email address a new person. And if I want to remove them, they would appear in this list. I can just delete them. So by default, no, there is no limit how much time somebody has access. They'll have access, as long as your account is active, they'll still have access. You can obviously control if you want to revoke that access at any point just by coming here. So yeah, great question. Let's revoke that, turn that board to being a main board, and move on. Cool. So I could add here a form. You can add a form to any board, but in this case, I don't think it makes sense to add the form here. In this board, what we're managing are the tasks. It's no problem to have another board, a separate board to manage the registrants. And in fact, anytime you're working on Monday, especially if you're new to this platform, try and ensure that the things you're managing on a board are examples of the same type of content, right? On this board, all of our items are tasks I need to complete for our fundraising gala. I'm not adding anything else here. I'm not going to add a new group of registrants because the columns, again, don't line up. So it doesn't make sense to start putting in people's names here because they don't have an owner or a status and so on. So I'm going to delete that group. I'm not going to add my form here. Instead, I'm going to come down to this main left-hand menu, clicking on this same plus we clicked on in the past, and this time I'm going to add a form. All right. Now, another fun element is that there is a beta AI form builder. Now, I'm a little bit torn here what to show you because I don't want to just do everything with AI, and I'm also kind of keen to demonstrate AI's power. So what we might do is both, right? I'll type in what we want to see here. This is a registration form for a fundraising gala for my nonprofit. So this is how easy it would be to use AI. But of course, we'll also take a look at how we can build a form, maybe not completely from scratch, but I'll show you how you can make changes to what AI suggested, how we can add our own questions and so on. This is in beta, as I said, so things may be changing here in the near future. There's obviously quite a lot of work being done around AI at the moment. So take it with a pinch of salt, but it is a pretty incredible time saver, that's for sure. All right, so here goes. Let's take a look and see what it suggested. Okay, so it's given it a title, Fundraising Gala Registration. Welcome to our form. Full name, email address, phone number, number of guests, dietary restrictions, and would you like to make an additional donation? Okay, very nice. I think that's pretty good. So we can make changes if we want to with the AI builder, or we can simply say create form, and this form will be as if I built it myself. From now on, there's no AI involvement, and the AI takes a completely back step. So we can make all of our individual changes now as we like. So what changes would we like to make? I'm here to edit form, and we can see them. First of all, you can see that all of these questions here are marked with a red asterisk, meaning these are, they come into the question settings, required questions. Okay, people cannot choose to fill this out without providing that information. So that's fine. I want to know their name, email address, phone number, the number of guests. Dietary restrictions is not a compulsory question. And at the moment, it's a plain text question. Now, that might be enough. It definitely allows people to explain, all the different allergies they may have, but it would make it a little bit harder to interpret that information afterwards. So what I might actually do is delete this question and add, instead of a plain text question, come to the plus here and add a multi-select question. And here I'm going to be able to provide my own suggestions for this exact question. So do you have any dietary restrictions? And then I can provide the options. Vegan, vegetarian, and people can pick more than one of these. Gluten-free, you get the idea, okay? Whatever. And then people are likely to have things that you didn't know about. So we can also put in here an option for other. And then I can add another question, which is short text. And this question would be, let us know in more detail your allergy. Here. What did we say? Necessarily an allergy, is it? Restriction here. And then I can come to the logic button and I can say, I only want to see this question. Let us know in more detail your restriction. If in the question, do you have any dietary restrictions? Somebody gives the answer, other. So they can still say vegan and gluten-free and halal. And if they also say other, they can then say, I'm also allergic to oysters. Okay. This question will not appear if they didn't answer anything here. Sorry, if they answered anything other than other here. So this question is not compulsory, first of all. I could make it compulsory by making it required here. But if they answer the other question, then this question down here will appear. Now, this question, would you like to make an additional donation? This was suggested by AI. It's a lovely idea, but one very important restriction to note about Monday's forms is that we cannot process payment through Monday's forms. Okay, you need a different payment processing app if you are going to be, using Monday on the day of the event. They can't swipe their credit card in the form, and it's important to know you can't ask for someone's credit card in a form like this. It's not a good use of this platform. And I think asking them to make a donation when we register for the event is maybe a little bit early, right? They're coming to the gala. They're going to hear George Clooney speak. Then they're going to want to make their donations. And then we'll have a different platform available for them on the day. So I'm going to remove this question as well. I think that's a bit premature. So to give you an idea here, you have a lot of different options, right? We took some of the suggestions from AI, we added a question, we changed the question. And if you click on the plus here, you can see all the different question types. Any of these you can use, and forms are free and unlimited. So if you want to make another one of these for next year, or you have an event coming up every single month, you need a new form, you want to have a special form for registering kids and a special form for registering adults, you can add more and more forms to the same place even. And they can have similar questions. The answers will appear in the same board, but you don't have to have everyone using the same form if you don't want to. The form will always be connected with a board, okay? All that work we did there, changing the questions, was also changing the corresponding columns here. So this is the dietary restrictions question. In fact, let's just fill out a form so we can see an example. If I click here on share form, I can then copy the link, and you can see how it would look to a regular user. Of course, this is public, meaning anyone can fill this out. They do not need to be a Monday user. They don't even need to know what Monday is, but I can share this with people very diverse ways, and then they can start registering. All right, here we can check out that example before. I'm gluten-free and I'm other. And here I can say that I have a severe water allergy. So I shouldn't make light of those who do have a severe water allergy. And then I can submit the forms like so. The answers will now appear here in my table. And you can see that because I restricted the options, I can now see what people have written. And if somebody does have a more unique allergy, let's say, like I did, then that is written as text. And you just have to, deal with that. But having a list like that will enable me to see much more clearly in a second what my variety of allergies are, and I can then plan my meal accordingly. All right, excellent. So that is a little bit about our form. And we've built out the basics of it, but we can also take things to the next level, okay? This is an area which Monday's put a lot of effort into in the last 6 months to a year. So things may look quite different here in the forms if you've been away and haven't seen forms for a while. For example, we can upload a logo, right? If you've got your logo on file, you can obviously find it here. I think I have a generic logo somewhere. Generic example logo. There we go. But you can change the color theme and the background image, so you can really make it look and feel like your nonprofit's work. You can change the alignment of the form and have the text going left to right, or change the layout so each page has a different question. There's a lot of new functionality within here. And then in the settings, we also have a lot of very cool new features. If your form is very complex, okay, ours is a pretty simple event, right? Register for the event, done. But if, for example, they're registering for, maybe they're registering for a summer camp, okay, and they've got to register different kids, There's a whole lot of different permissions they have to give. They need to upload documents. Maybe you want to allow them to save the form as a draft. So they don't have to do it all at once. This is a big, big boost. If your security is a real concern, you can add here the capture challenge so that no bots can fill it out. Our specific event, maybe this one is very helpful, setting a closing date. Okay, I want to have as many people register as possible, but I also want to cap it, right? I don't want people to be registering 5 minutes before the event starts. That's not giving me enough time to prepare for their unique allergies and set their place at the table. So let's say that the event is taking place on, the December 31st. I can maybe close the form off for registration on December 29th. So I have enough time to arrange things for them. I can then set the date so that after this date, the form will be closed. You saw here the redirect. So at the moment, it just said, thank you for filling out the form. I could redirect them to my website. I could redirect them to a donation page on my website if I wanted to. I can put in any URL I want here. That is not a problem. And the list goes on and on. There's really a lot of cool new features you can use around forms, and a lot of cool ways they can be shared, right? I showed you one way, but you can also embed these forms on your website. You can also share these forms using QR codes. There's buttons to share them directly with different social media platforms. And let's give it a nice name, Gala registration form. And I think that this really does unlock planning an event, whether it's an event like we're doing here or registering kids for a camp or anything in between. This will make your life a lot easier. And I'll show you next how having this information listed in this way will enable us to get more insight into the number of guests that we have and what kind of people we have and what kind of things we need to be able to provide for them. So before we do take a look at that element, again, I'm going to take a quick pause and try and check out the questions in the chat. All right, Stephanie, is there a way to set up where sub-items need to be done before the main item can be done? I want to prevent someone from changing the main task to done without having sub-items done first. So there's a couple of options there. That's, I guess, down here in our fundraising event. What we could do is we could take this column and where is it? Here. So I'm in my status column. I can show the summary on the parent item. So now I'm seeing the summary as it truly is, okay? And when these change, the summary changes as well. Now this works best really when all of your items just have sub-items. And then you could, even remove this column altogether. But that's, one way you could do things. You can also add another automation. There is an automation here in the automation recipe builder. If I search here for sub-items, I could say this. When all sub-items of an item have the status of done, change the item status to done. Okay, this is a pre-built recipe. I didn't need to build that myself. I found that here in the pre-built recipe list just by searching sub-items. And now let's see what happens when we mark all of these as done. That status will also hopefully follow suit. Pretty cool, no? Now, someone still could change this, okay? Even with that automation in place. If Angelina was working on it and somebody jumps the gun and marks this as done, it doesn't prevent me from doing that. If you want to actually prevent someone from making changes to a column, I think the best thing to do is to come to the 3 dots here, settings, and restrict who can edit this column. And then they would have to edit the items and the sub-items for that column to change. So there's a couple of different options there. You can see which one works best for you. But yes, you can definitely take the values from the sub-items and have that impact your items more clearly. Okay, someone is already asking about payments and if we're going to do it in the future. The forms can link to a payment, like we said, direct you to a payment processor. And there are payment apps which do link with Monday. The most common one will be Stripe. So if you visit here in our integration center, you can see all of the apps which do link with Monday already. Stripe here is a payment processing app. which has a free organic connection to Monday. So you can say, when a charge event occurs in my Stripe account, create an item in Monday. So you can have a link in your form to the payment page on your website where your Stripe is the vendor, and then connection back to Monday on a separate board. You could list all your donations. There are also a few options in the app marketplace. So these are the integrations that we've built, but in the app marketplace, there are apps which other people have built. One which I like is GiveButter. GiveButter is a payment processing app, which you can see here if I search, already coming up as suggested, is GiveButter. So you can, again, have a connection between Monday and GiveButter, and the transactions will appear directly in Monday. I'm not aware of any plans to include that feature directly in Monday's forms, but you're more than welcome to request it. There is a request form where you can make product suggestions, and if enough people request something, then it will quite simply happen. So it's certainly something which could happen, I guess. Is there a way to link to other payments? A few people are asking about that, to other different options. Yes. The order of kind of the flow there, the first thing to do would be to check the integration center, see if Monday's already built a free organic integration. If not, take a look at the app marketplace and see if someone else has. If that doesn't work, you can always consider a third-party integrator, something like Zapier or Make, which can make the connection for you. They may be able to connect between your payment processor and Monday. And if that doesn't work, you could pay a developer to build you an app, or you can just do the old-fashioned way. If you are registering people for an event on a specific date and time, it's very easy to upload data into Monday, right? If I've got my own board here, which is going to become my donation board, I'll just do this from scratch for now, even though we do have a template for managing donations. I could very easily come here and import either an Excel or CSV file to my board. And as long as you've got in your original donation processing software the ability to export, that'll take 10 seconds to export it as an Excel, and then another couple of minutes to upload it as an Excel here. So especially if you're working around these sort of big drives where everybody donates together in the space of a couple of days, then you upload it here. It's a very straightforward process. And if anybody does want more information about, working with donations and donors, I do have a special dedicated course just to managing donors and donations, a 2-part course. You can register in that original page I mentioned, monday.com/nonprofits. But yeah, do keep the old-fashioned upload option is very much still possible, Okay, we are getting close to the end of time. So the end of time, the end of our time together. The apocalypse is not coming around the corner. So let me just scan through this quickly to see if we have other important questions to pull out. Okay, yeah, so a follow-up question from the Stripe integration. When a Stripe payment is processed, could you update a column on the forms board to paid? Yes, you could automate it, but probably that information would come in from Stripe and create a new item, right? A dedicated item for the donation, and that would say paid. But if you wanted to also then have that refer back to the original registration, we could add a status here to did they donate, and it could connect that way. That's not a problem. Yeah, a few more people asking about specific platforms. Triple Seat and OneCall, I don't think we have already integrations with, but as I said, there are other options there. Okay, cool. Yeah, a few more questions about the forms once they've been filled out. So once a form has been filled out, we can absolutely automate that to send someone a follow-up email. As long as you've asked them for their email address, we could add here an automation that says something like this. Let's build this one from scratch. No more templates today. The automation could say when an item is created, so as soon as someone fills out the form, yeah, send an email. Now I could use Gmail or Outlook for this. I've already set up a connection with a couple of different Gmail accounts, so you can see them listed here. If it's the first time, you'll need to put in your username and password. Just takes another few seconds. and then I can write the content of the email. So I can say, thank you for your registration, or your registration is confirmed. And again, this can be dynamic, just like with the notification earlier. I can say, hi, item name, your registration was received and you are now confirmed. The address of the event is blah, 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 blah. You can put in whatever you want to. You can pull from the board, you can put in links, whatever you need to do. And then the critical point here is, who are we sending it to? This can again be dynamic, whichever information lives in the email address column. So it'll go straight away to the email that they provided. And it should now live here in our list of automations. There it is. And another sort of similar question from Emma Jo: after the form, can we assign people to fill it out? So once the form has been filled out, we can absolutely then do more things to it. So the answers that we see listed here, we could add extra columns here. Okay, for example, a status column. Did they attend? Okay, this won't impact the way the form looks. This is going to be hidden from the form, but I can then, once the event has happened, mark off here that yes, Alex Jones attended. I could add, many, many more elements here that I'm working on after the form has been completed. Just because the form gave us the information doesn't mean that's where we have to kind of end it. All right, my friends, I'm very aware of time, and there's still one more big element that I wanted to show you. So I'm going to pause the questions there. I apologize if something gets unanswered, but like I said, I'll send a follow-up email. The last thing I wanted to show you is our dashboard, okay? Dashboards, let's just call it new dashboard for now. We're short on time. The reporting tool in Monday.com. They connect to other boards. In our case, maybe the ones we've been working on, the registration form, the donations board, and the event management board. And this is then going to become my kind of overall place where I get a nice vision of everything that's going on with this project. I can add up to 30 widgets. Now, these are going to be charts and graphs and different things to show me the progress of what's going on. So, for example, a battery widget would be nice as a first one to show the percentage of tasks that are completed. Okay, so I can see at a glance, we have completed about a third of the tasks, 7% working on it, 61% are still empty. Now, when I added this widget, I didn't do anything to set it up. I just said, show me a widget. So what I would recommend once you add a widget like this is to come to the three dots in settings and just check to see what it's actually reporting on to make sure that you're reporting accurately. Because we do have, remember, 3 different boards currently connected here. And you can see that it's actually showing me 2 different status columns because 2 of my boards have this column. And that may not be what I want. If I come down here to boards, I can choose in this specific widget, maybe I don't want to see the registration form or the donations, okay? Although they may have status columns, that's not relevant for this specific widget. This specific widget is showing me the tasks that have been completed from the fundraising event management board. So that's the only one I want to have selected. But I want all of the groups from that board, although maybe in some cases you'd want to exclude some. And I can choose, all the way down to the number of columns that I'm showing. So this is perfect for me, showing me the status overall of the tasks that have been completed. Now, I may also want to add a widget to track how many people have registered. This is going to be a different widget, and it's going to pull information from a different board. I'm going to pull this information from the registration form using the numbers widget. At the moment, it's displaying 16,002. Now, I have to confess, I don't even know what that number is. So let's give it a name, registrants to date. And then just like earlier, I'm going to come to the 3 dots in settings and see what it's sort of suggested for me. Again, I'll maybe come to the boards first of all, because I don't want to see the information from these 2 boards. Not relevant. Okay, now it's looking a bit more likely. and I can choose which number column it's pulling in. I want to see the number column from the number of guests. Now, maybe every one of your guests is going to fill out their own individual form. In that case, you wouldn't have a number column, and that's okay. You can just have a simple count of the items. Right? We have one registration. One person filled out our form, so the answer is 1. But I can also choose to pull information from a column, like the number of guests column, in which case the answer is 2, because when I filled out the form, I said I have 2 people attending. So depending on which way you've designed your form, you can pull the correct information from the board, have it displayed here. Basically, when you're building these dashboards, as long as you've got the data in your boards, you can display it here. It's just a matter of setting it up to show what you want it to show. Now, the last widget that I'd like to add is a pretty cool one. If I come down here to more widgets, is the gauge widget. The gauge widget is going to allow me to track how much I've raised so far. And you can see here that this is not part of my product plan. Now, that's merely because this widget is only available on Monday's CRM product. And the good news is the CRM product is now available on the nonprofit plan. If you come up here to the 3 dots, you can see all the different products that are available. Usually most paying customers have to pay more to access each of these. If you see these 9 dots, you're able to switch between these products. You are on the nonprofit plan and you're able to use these products freely. It may say something like start 14-day free trial. You can ignore that. If you're on the nonprofit program, you have access. So what I could do is, for example, move this dashboard to a different product, put it in any workspace that I like. And now that it's living over there, it's still connected to the same boards, by the way. But now when I come to add a widget, you will see the gauge widget is available to. Again, most people would need to pay extra for this, but we can track here our fundraising efforts. Right, I can then connect this to my donations board. And as soon as donations come in, whether it's from Stripe or GiveButter or I'm entering them manually, this can then be a live gauge. It's going to even be displayed, on a big screen at the fundraising event, right? George Clooney is there on stage speaking, and above him you can see this gauge slowly rising and rising and rising. Of course, this is also customizable. Up to the settings, I can, make changes to the way it looks. The actual value and the target value can be changed. We can also, add settings like the $sign again. Visual settings can be changed, colors can be changed, etc., etc. And it can then be a nice goal, either for your fundraisers to actually see how much they've contributed, or just an internal thing, right? At the moment, this is not a dashboard that I'd be sharing publicly. This has got information that's only going to be used by me and my team. But having this kind of thing visible to a donor might be nice. So you may want to create 2 different dashboards. Okay, maybe there is still an internal dashboard with just the sort of sensitive information about your event, and there's a second one with the public-facing event, like how much money you've been able to raise as a result. This is just giving you an idea, just a quick taste of what's possible with the dashboard. The important things to note: the dashboard can be connected to multiple boards, as we've seen here, so it can pull data from multiple places. It can be displayed in visual ways as you like, and it can then be customized to really pull out the specific insights that you are looking for. Fabulous. So my friends, we've already gone 5 minutes over time. And I do want to be respectful of the hour that people signed up for. So I am going to wrap things up there. But I hope that this was a nice little introduction to how you can use Monday.com to manage events successfully as a nonprofit. There are so many elements to an event, but I think that just about everything can be covered on Monday, from the actual project planning itself to the registration to building those reports and seeing the oversight. All of that is possible with this platform. And it's a fun platform to play with, so get your hands dirty, get in there and see what works well for you. And check out some of those other training events if you do have further questions down the line. You might need future support. You're always welcome to join me in future sessions, or take advantage of our free 24/7 customer support. Even our nonprofits can take advantage of that any time of day or night. Just click on the question mark icon in the top right corner, and you can speak to an agent any time of day or night if you can't quite figure out how to do something. I will be sending a follow-up email with a link to the recording. I'll try and answer any questions that we maybe didn't have time for there as well. But for now, thank you all very much for joining. Have a great rest of your day, and maybe see you again next time on another future session. Bye-bye.